if you have any concerns to that, please decline that. As we do most of the time, we will have a presentation. And after the presentation, you will have a chance to submit your questions. But if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, you can use the chat window. I will follow the chat. So if you have any technical problems, you can write to me as well. But after the presentation, we will go through the questions. We are still waiting a bit. For those who are coming late, I'm Viktor Horvat, the Vice President of Professional Events at the PMI Budapest Hungarian chapter. We are still waiting a couple of minutes for the participants and start with the webinar with Marek. Okay, so I think we can start now. So I will give the floor to Marek Rudnicki, our presenter today. So Marek, please introduce yourself in a short way to the attendees and start your presentation, please. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Let me share the presentation. Can everybody see my screen? The presentation.
I see it.
Okay, so I think we can start. So first of all, I want to thank you for this invitation for the Launch and Learn PMI Budapest chapter event. I think it was 9 years when I was first time part of this type of event in Budapest, and it was a great event. It was a time when it was much smaller group, 150 people, and obviously this was also in a venue. Anyway, I just wanted to start it. Recently, I had a chance to cooperate with one of the financial institution. Actually, this was a bank, and this was a state-owned bank, which on one side it was acting as a commercial organization, and on the other side it was a kind of governmental institution also to run the governmental stimulation program on the market. And I work with the PMO on this organization, and the PMO they have organized the way that this is just one PMO for the total bank and total organization, in a sense that controlled all the projects in this institution. They have a quite number of projects between 80 or 120. It was varying between years, and those projects were those which needed a special funding outside the operational budget, because obviously in each department there was a lot of activities as well, kind of project-like. And we were working on getting more smoother operation of the PMO and getting to the next level of operation. And while working with this institution, I noticed that while every project going in initiation phase has to have a business case to get approved, only 50% of those projects really had a business case. And the reason for this was that they have quite a large number of MGP projects. So what is MGP project? I'm not sure I can switch the, hold on. Okay, I'm not sure. Can you see? I think I make it down. Okay. So what is MPG project? So this is a must-go project, and the must-go project obviously is a regulatory project. So I think many of you probably in your organizations also have a contact with this type of projects, regulatory projects. So one of the example of those projects was, for example, GDPR introduction in 2018, where every organization had to comply somehow. And as a bank, obviously, this type of projects are very frequent because this market and this industry is very much regulated, and there's a lot of agencies within the country and outside the country, European Union, and different bodies which enforces certain regulations. And so 50% of those projects were kind of must-go projects, and they didn't have a business case. And obviously, there is some logic behind this, because creating the business case is an effort, and many organizations doesn't really require the business case for the regulatory projects, because it's a lot of work. And probably also the business cases are not so sexy because they have to happen somehow, and they didn't really look for the benefits out of those projects. But thinking about this and working with the local team, we just ask a couple of questions. So, okay, it's fine to be compliant within those projects of the regulatory projects, but aren't we missing some opportunity really to surface certain values and benefits and of those projects, because they certainly may have some hidden treasures and some benefits just to justify this project even more, or even move into direction just to amplify those benefits. And what PMO as an organization, as a cross-functional organization within this bank can do with it. So before I really jump into discussion on this, on different things, how it was approached, I just wanted to very briefly introduce myself. So I'm Marek Rudnicki, and I'm based in Poland, in Warsaw. I'm 27 already years on the market, so you can easily deduct my age out of this. During my career, I mostly was connected with different roles for the project. So starting from project managers and program managers, executive program managers, PMO person, delivery assurance. So all what is connected to the delivery of the projects to different organizations. This was kind of mostly defining my career and my experience. I used to work for organizations like AT&T and CR Teradata. Currently, I'm providing the different support and consulting services for different organizations. I'm also involved in a small startup, which is Pricel, and this is dedicated for the solutions to estimate and to forecast the cost for the projects or services. So what are we going to discuss on this event today is how PMO can really help in the benefits realization governance. And this all discussion and whatever I will be presenting, and hopefully you will also have a lot of comments on this one, is based on the experience I had with this one customer and this large bank. And obviously the way how they organize it, how we define it, it was a one way of organization. I'm sure there is the other ways how it can be organized, but this is exactly the beauty of this meeting, is that we can crash different ways how the things can be delivered. Before talking about the really what happened in this case, I just wanted to get a little bit on the definitions. So this is partially taken from the case as it was defined in organization, but partially these definitions are kind of standardized from the market. So first of all is the value, and this is important to get these definitions kind of aligned when we discuss this, because this really make it whole discussion and building and processes more solid and more understandable for all participants on the process. So the value is basically the business impact, and it is not quantifiable information in principle. So, for example, the value could be more green, right, or be more digitally transformed as an organization. And the level down is a benefit, which is more quantifiable element of the value. And this is where from the definition point of view, we define the specific values, right, on the and specific numbers, which is much easier to follow and much easier to validate. Out of this benefit, if we standardized certain benefits into the more universal view, and then we created certain KPIs, which I will be talking later out of this. And of course, there is a business case, which is a kind of statement where we cross when we cross the investment needed for the specific project or program versus the benefits, and we trying to compare this and see how the business case looks like. The other important part was just to define where is the value and to understand really where is the value coming from for the projects and how it links really to the whole organization and the strategy. And the value really comes from the strategy. So the strategy of the large organization and like this bank is obviously a number of pillars, a number of statements in the strategy. And each of the statement from the strategy was a kind of foundation for the value for the specific project. So kind of every project, every initiative should be linked to the strategy through the value definition in a business case. And each pillar of the strategy has its own value validation on the project. And the source of the value and the definition of the value for specific project has to come from the business owner of the project. And this is definitely not the PMO job. So it has to be very clearly also specified that who is responsible for defining the value and for the specific project. And this is the business definitely and its organization. So then we come to the questions that obviously we can define the business case for each individual project, but can we really measure the value and benefits on a portfolio level? Can we make it somehow more portfolio related information within our PMO organization? And the answer is yes and no, because obviously we have a lot of different projects which addresses different parts of the strategy and the value. Just to give an example, on one end, we can have a digital transformation or kind of decommission of the system or migration of the IT system, which is one side of the project type. On the other side, we have introduction of the new product on the market, or for example, renovating the headquarters, which is a completely construction project, and this was still project governed by the PMO. So there's a completely different spectrum of the projects. But however, the analysis done on the past projects realized by the bank was that there's a certain standardization which can be done and certain KPI benefits which are reappearing on each of the case of the projects. So finally, the bank came to the set of the five classifications for the KPIs, and where the most commonly appearance was on the past projects, and it was expected that the next projects, future projects will also kind of follow those benefits. And this was the financial profitability, cost optimization, process optimization, which was part of the strategy as well. And the process optimization was divided into workload and time, market impact, and MGP, which is regulatory projects. And we come back to these regulatory projects in the next slides as well. It doesn't mean that every single project has to have those benefits, but there was an assumption that at least 80–90% of the projects should have this component and should comply to this type of benefits. So this is how the standardization of the whole model started. So let me briefly go through those KPIs, how the process looks like, how the KPIs really are defined. So financial profitability, this was basically was based on net present value, and I think this doesn't need to be introduced because this is so commonly used for every project as a business case. I think everybody knows how it works, but in very short, it's just comparing the financial benefits to the cost investment for the project, and this is all related in a time through the discount rate. So just to measure the money within the longer time frame. And this is super universal tool and very, very easy to understand. And that's the pros for this model, for the financial profitability. Basically, it's very easy to understand for the sponsors. It's very easy for managers, even somebody who doesn't understand the project scope or what does when he looks at the net present value calculation. It's very easy for him to understand what is this project benefit, financial benefit, and profitability. So these are the pros of the model. However, there were some challenges when introducing the net present value, which were kind of unexpected as well. So one thing is, and I think this is very common, is just the benefit side is kind of hard to every time to make a good and solid base for this. And I think most of us in our career, when we're working with the business case, probably seen certain cases where the top line, where the financial benefits was a kind of wishy-washy or fluffy, whatever term you use it. So it was kind of more wishes just to make it looking good. And this is kind of the challenge sometimes to make a right calculation, to provide a right calculation, financial calculation for the project output. The other challenge, which is with this model, was, and this was kind of unexpected, was the duration of the model. There was a big discussion on the duration of the model because we wanted to have one standardized time frame for every project, just to make it kind of comparable and standardized. But obviously, there was a number of big projects which were requiring much longer time frame to be positive. The sponsors of this project was absolutely super pushy on making this 7 years, for example. Well, obviously, for the smaller projects, 7 years makes completely nonsense, and 3 years is already kind of long perspective. And it has to be really smooth through the organizations. What is this time frame we're going to go for the NPV calculation? Because it may be a kind of challenge on a discussion on a big organization, which time frame to take. Basically, the conclusion is that it shouldn't be longer than 3 years, because it's very hard to predict and measure even anything after 3 years. It's even 3 years. It seems to be like a very long time in today's standards. The last part with this KPI was a kind of how to really apply the discount rate, because this is a market value, and it changes. It changes as a market, and today we know that everything around the discount rates and interest rates, everything is changing dramatically in our environment. So that you have to answer the question: what do you do with all this changing? Do you change every year this information? Do you rewrite the business cases if you change it? This has to be decided. It's probably not super challenging thing, but it has to be standardized with this model. There are two other KPIs on financial profitability which we discussed, but I just wanted to only very briefly mention this is ROI and IRR, because sometimes we can meet them in a business cases. Basically, they are much less useful, in our opinion, was much less useful for the business case, because they are not really good for presenting the value and profitability that good, as rather good to compare different options and projects, and they require even more standardization, just how to define exactly what do we mean by ROI and what do we mean by internal rate of return in specific, how to calculate this. So that kind of good to as additional information. That was our conclusion, rather than just main KPI which was managed. So overall, it was not really considered, but just to mention that because they are kind of also used from time to time. The next KPI, cost reduction. And obviously, this is expressed in dollars, and we all can imagine what does it mean. It's just when the projects really, after delivery, provide the significant cost reduction. It could be in a OPEX specifically. And almost every digital transformation projects, outsourcing, offshoring, and process automation, this type of projects almost automatically falls into this category and should be able to present certain value of this benefit and this KPI. Additional to cost reduction, we have a work role process optimization, which is a kind of cost reduction as well, because workload optimization means, of course, less people needed to support center process, and the same type of projects were qualified for this KPI. However, this is expressed more in headcount and in hours rather than just the value. So there was no expression in the dollars or in a currency, but more in hours. And I think it makes a lot of sense. If you have organization which is kind of human capital based, it's very good to have this KPI kind of separated for the projects, because you want to really track what's happening with these reductions or these hours or headcounts. Do you want to use it in another part of the bank? Do you really want to reduce the headcount? So there's a lot of this consideration. So the decision was really to track it as a separate KPI within the organization. Time process optimization. So the bank and institution is constantly fighting for simplifying their operation and the processes. So from this perspective, this was one of the strategy point and obviously the value. So the one of the KPIs for time process optimization was also defined, and this is nothing else than just shortening and simplifying the process. And it's not an easy KPI, and decision was just to express it in hours. The one cons on this specific KPI is also the previous one, is that just to build a business case, there is some work needed just to really go and understand the process, and just to make this as is analysis and kind of imagine to be analysis, to be able to build up the business case on its own. So there needs some specific skills and knowledge just to prepare this KPI for the business case. The next one is a market KPI, and so if the strategy, and this in this case this was part of the strategy, because of course obviously as an institution, financial institution, it introduced a lot of instruments and a lot of tools on a market. So if you're going for new geographical territories, or new market share, or new customer base, or new products, completely new territories, from the strategy point of view, you can define this KPI, and you can assume that there's a number of projects along the years which will be supporting this specific value and specific strategy statement. And this was defined as well in this case as it was more for the product projects, product introduction projects in a bank. The last category is must-go projects, which are the regulatory projects, and obviously there was this project didn't require a business case, but there was a lot of discussion what can be done on this one, and obviously those projects have the goal is to be compliant, and not to be compliant means something, and it means operational risk, and not to be compliant, and exposure for the fines. So you can develop, based on the compliance on the regulatory projects, you can develop the KPI which is related to fine avoidance, and it can be called as a potential financial benefits. It's not really the hard cash which is coming, but it's more limiting the exposure for the fine avoidance, and it can be very much monetary and expressed in a currency, because it's very well defined very often by the different regulation and bodies what can be exposure over here. Nevertheless, even if you stop at this point in time, there's a next step you can take, because many of these projects turn out to be going with the other benefits as well. So either this is a cost reduction or workload optimization or process optimization. So if we go, for example, for the example, one of the example could be the anti-money laundering regulations, which is obviously introducing kind of standardized approach for the banks and institutions how to manage this risk. And before introduction anti-money laundering regulations, that obviously in a bank there was a lot of existing processes, a lot of systems supporting this, a lot of different distributed points where when these processes were happening. So it's not that the bank didn't have anything. Obviously they have a lot, but this allow them just to really rethink and change the landscape, how it is supported, how the process looks like, how it is supported by which system, do we consolidate it. So overall introduction of this project's anti-money laundering was also bringing a lot of optimization in the processes and headcounts, and it was an additional benefit on top of just to be compliant. Okay, so finally, this 5 sets of the KPIs which were introduced in a kind of portfolio, and then there was an expectation that every project should kind of relate to this if they can. It doesn't mean that every project has to have these KPIs, but at least should have one or more, and best if they have more, because many projects can address more than one. And it was also part of the important statements. We should always look for more than one and try to have a standardized set of questions, standardized ways of validating, can we do more than just one specific main KPI? And if the project doesn't address this, can it have its own statement of the value of own KPI, which can be put on a business case. And this is where the PMO role comes, and basically the PMO is designed very much to govern the processes, and it has a great role because also had the super visibility of all project activities within the organization, and it was a kind of controlling of the process of initiations and delivery and closing. So it was a super perfectly fit just to go and manage also the business case life cycle and business case and benefits realization governance. So, but it's very important to define properly what is really PMO role and kind of level down. So the ownership, I think PMO can be a huge value in standardization of the process, because this process needs a lot of standardization. Certain things looks very easy and everybody understands NPV, but when we dive deep into this NPV, then it's a lot of things you have to really decide as an organization how you want to run this, and it needs some organization which kind of controls this and keeps the model and the standard up to date. And the process definition, because there's a life cycle of the business case and benefits realization, and of course reporting. The other part where I think the PMO is playing a really important role, but it's not accountable for this, is just a business case definition and monitoring. I will be talking in the next slides about this, because this role is even more challenging, and it's very important that PMO kind of plays a role in this one. So standardization, I already mentioned, this is a number of things you have to design and for this kind of portfolio going approach. So first of all, governance, what are the steps and what are the really steps and process and actors in a specific in a process. List of KPIs and definitions, duration of NPV model, discount rate. So there's a number of things you have to decide with the business controlling and a lot of bodies. Very important step is duration of monitoring. It has to be also kind of defined and enforced at the very beginning in the process. And something which is not so easy as well, and this was also kind of the bigger discussion, is a kind of like cost rates for the workloads, because the projects obviously have their own business cases, and we find out that not always the cost rates internal people and external organizations, this things has to be really standardized as well, just to make a more meaningful and faster the definition of the business case. So business case governance or benefits realization governance is pretty much aligned with the project life cycle. So on the whole orange part on this picture is also kind of project life cycle. So when we have an initiation of the projects, and just to get an approval, obviously we have to have a business case. So we have to define the benefits, we have to define the cost for the project, which is obvious. And we have to define also monitoring later of the business benefits. And this is the moment. If we miss this moment, it is very hard to execute later. It has to be an agreement with the business how we're going to monitor the specific business case benefits. On the execution, it's obviously much less work on this space. But if we have for example, change on the project, so there's a huge change in cost, it may require that we have to change the business case. It is not super popular activity for the sponsors. Obviously, I think sponsors and the business owners are not super happy when they have to change the business case, because in most cases they are not going to get the same results as a business case, probably a little bit weaker business case. But however, the big change on the project has to be followed, and this is where PMO also has to enforce certain culture that business case is validated once again, and it's changed, and obviously some decisions may be made based on this. And also managing the cost of the project, because it's a part of the business case, but obviously when we do execution of the project, managing the cost is a part of the project management standard practice. So it doesn't have to be really, it doesn't require any additional activities. Then we come to monitoring, which is a very important step. And this is when each individual project has its own scheme on the monitoring, depending on the business benefits and on the specific KPIs, because sometimes it's a one time at the end of the project. Sometimes the benefits are already during the execution of the project. Sometimes you require the time frame, like NPV, just to observe the benefits. So it has to be really agreed how it's going to be done, and it has to be very disciplined, executed, and always compared to the original business case, just to have a baseline. And this is very important. If we don't have a business case well defined, it will be very hard to get any meaningful information out of this. And at the end, we have a reporting, and reporting is more on the portfolio level, although they introduce the information on each project level, because each project may have a different set of benefits. But those benefits which can be aggregated, like NPV, like in time, or workload optimization, or cost optimization, or even process simplification through the time, those can be kind of aggregated and presented on a bank with either the quarterly or yearly. I mean, this is the recommended the pace of this, or yearly report. And this is a very rewarding part, because those results are quite often they are always validated by the organization, like controlling. And when the bank did it for the first time, it was a really nice numbers, and it was kind of presenting what is the value of the portfolio, what is the value of PMO job, what is the business effort on doing the project. This is really the essence of delivery. Okay, so there are also issues to watch out on this process, and I will leave you few seconds just to go through this story on the pictures, because this is what we can address on the next slides as well. Okay, I think we can move to the next slides. Yes, so quality of the business case. So as we mentioned, the beautification of the business case is a really sometimes an issue, and this quality is everything. If we don't spend enough time to prepare the quality information on the business case, obviously anything else what is happening like monitoring or reporting makes very little sense. Just to give you the example, in this organization, from the case at the beginning, they have around, let's say, 100 projects, and 50 were kind of regulatory with no business case. But the remaining 50 from the previous time past, like 2-3 years back, they only 10 plus, around 15, were qualified for the monitoring. And the reason for this is that the business cases which were approved and prepared, they were really not adequate for the monitoring. So either this was just a numbers with no explanation how it was calculated, there was no assumptions, and there was no information what is the real logic behind these numbers and how we can go and how we can validate what was the really thinking behind this. Quite often, people who were behind those business cases were not even in the organization anymore. So it was very hard to go and validate and discuss what was the meaning by preparing this specific business case. So from this perspective, those projects were obviously they were successful, but were disqualified for any monitoring. And there was a limited number of projects which could go through the best. And one of the conclusions was just really to strengthen this business case definition and making as best as possible, documented all assumptions and standardize the effort, how this is prepared. The second part, second issue to watch out really is the monitoring. Monitoring is even more challenging, in my opinion, of the benefits realization. And there's a reason and logic behind this. Obviously, that when the project is delivered, there's very little motivation for the business just to go and now track the benefits. Specifically, there's also the risk that the numbers are not the same as it was expected. And from this perspective, it's very hard to execute this part if it's not really well set up much earlier at the project beginning, and it's really kind of agreed how it's going to be done at the project initiations, and there's a very solid definition, and also the business case is prepared properly, so no one is afraid to go into monitoring. And monitoring, it has to be also expressed. This is not to really find the discrepancies and be disappointed that the project didn't provide the value which was planned at the beginning. It's more to build up certain culture, to validate how we do build the business cases, just to have a closed loop to make it better and understandable, and where is the reality check, and also have this experience as a lessons learned for the next project, because every year organization like this could have another 100 projects, obviously. And the other part is that obviously if you have NPV 3 years, and this was the case, it is very hard to monitor the project which was delivered 2 years ago, and obviously the business is already focused on the next things, and it's really history. So the conclusion here was just to monitor this for the shortest possible time, which makes sense. So if we select 1 year and we see that there's certain benefits coming out of these projects, we can already measure. There's no reason not to believe that in a year 2 or 3 there will be similar benefits or even better, because the project is going better. If of course business wants to report a longer period, that's fine. But I think the keeping this period of reporting as short as possible. And also, if it can be, for example, adjusted for the financial year, because you want to really present the portfolio in a kind of financial year numbers, that's also a strong recommendation, just to keep it as short as possible, just to not to bother business with the too long period over the years. Time for conclusions and tips from this short presentation and short case. So standardizing is a key, because the understanding even for the basic KPIs and basic world standard approaches, there's a lot of details behind, and it's very important just to have prepare the standard and agree with the organization, and just to go across with this, exactly the same meaning for everything, which may be a challenge, but PMO this is where the PMO is playing could play, of course, the vital part as well. Second recommendation is always try to identify as many benefits, KPIs as possible for the specific project, even if the project is very clearly what is going to deliver, and it's where is really the main value behind the project. Standardizing set of questions, standardizing the KPIs which project has to kind of answer is, you may be surprised how many projects will find out that there's other hidden treasures behind this, and it strengthens the message on a approval body. Enforcing documentation of all assumptions and quality and benefits for the business case. So the beginning definition is absolutely super important, because anything else depends on this beginning and the quality of this first step, which has to be prepared. Many projects from this case didn't qualify because of this, and it was a big loss because projects were successful in time and the cost to be delivered, and they really provided also the value, everybody feel it, but they couldn't really justify and put the specific numbers against the business case. And they keep discipline in benefits monitoring. This is very important step, just to agree with the business at the very beginning, when they are still motivated to get the projects, how it's going to be measured, and just work with them after the project or during the project, just to keep the same pace, and don't going too long, because it's obviously very hard to keep the time frame. In this case, also dedicating one person from the PMO team which deals with this, and it's part of the all meetings, and business case definition is a huge benefit, because this person can transfer knowledge from one project to another and kind of help guide the business just to be more efficient and smooth in preparing the business case, and follow to compliance, follow to the standards and the specific process defined. So kind of PMO person can orchestrate the process and the step to make it as easy as possible for the business, because obviously this requires an effort and a lot of thinking. Also can transfer a lot of shared experience between projects. If you have a lot of projects, after 2-3 years, this knowledge is building up how to build this business case, and you can really get the huge efficiency when you have a dedicated team who is supporting this process. But obviously, business case preparation is on a business shoulders. PMO can only facilitate this process and be a helpful hand. Talking about the sources when preparing this material, and also preparing the engagement with the bank, is there's not that many I could find really specifically addressing this, but there's one book which I would like to recommend, because it really clarifies a lot of KPIs and different techniques how to define the business case, and how to present the business case. This is the Making a Compelling Business Case by Wolfgang Messner. It's a big book, but it has a lot of examples, a lot of graphical examples, a lot of tables, a lot of good case examples, how to interpret specific numbers. So if you really are interested in, you never had this book yet and across you, and you haven't read this, so I really recommend to get this book and just get a little bit more practical approach from this author. Okay, so this was this short my presentation, and sharing certain experiences from this my engagement. So now it's time for questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Marek, for your presentation and sharing your experiences. Yes, I would like to ask our attendants to submit your questions in the chat window. We have some already, so I will read it to you. If I don't see it to the camera, that's why I see another. So Zoltan asked during your presentation, what were the triggers for this company to decide to establish a PMO? PMO and its standardization comes with additional admin tasks that is often considered superfluous. bureaucracy?
It's a very good question, but in this case, because this was a bank and big institution and a lot of distributed departments, a lot of people, and a lot of things are happening at the same time, I think they wouldn't be able to live without PMO. And I think I can't imagine any bank in the world which doesn't have a PMO and doesn't manage the projects. Basically, projects are, the strategy, most of the strategy for the larger organizations, even for the small organizations, is delivered through the projects. Projects are the vehicles to execute the strategy. So whatever is a strategy statement, it has to be executed through the project. So, and in a large organization, getting the funding, getting the standardized information, monitoring the delivery, it cannot happen without PMO. There would be a complete mess if they wouldn't have a organization which is kind of keeping the process of initiating the projects, monitoring the projects, reporting the projects, closing the projects. It would be impossible for them to execute the strategy. That's a simple statement, how I see it. And it probably relates to any bigger and medium-sized even organization. So I can't imagine this type of organization without PMO. Okay, hope this is answered. This answered the questions.
I think so. So we have another question from Janos Laszlo. If I understood correctly, scope of monitoring is the BC and KPIs which are assumed by the project. Did you manage any kind of value controlling? So did you do any review on that this specific project really delivered the assumed BC?
Yes, this is an excellent question, because it's absolutely right. The business case comes from the sponsor and the project itself. So obviously this is how the project and the sponsor and his organization or business people, how they see this is our benefits, this is our cost, and of course preparing the cost for the project is a standard cost estimation project activity. So this is quite good. There's a lot of good techniques, which is good. But obviously the bottom, the top line, which is the benefits, it can be shaky, and it's always the view of the business and people who own the project. However, the monitoring and validating the numbers is going not only from this business is part of it, and they have to go for this, but for example, financial benefits, financial profitability benefits in this bank would have to be always validated by controlling. So they have to confirm and stamp that these are the benefits for this project, for this specific, and this is the cash flow we received for this specific project after delivering this specific project, and so on and so. So the controlling side for the financial was a kind of official stamp for the benefits, and it was not the really business who said, okay, we delivered, this is, we're doing even better. So there was a true validation somehow. Not for every KPI you can do it, but obviously, if you, for example, have a workload optimization, yes, there was a lot of questions, for example, after the project delivery, okay, what happened with the workload with you planned, how much we saved, where are the people? And there's a lot of questions on this one, and then you have to really explain it in details. So this validation of reality is happening, and it is very important. Otherwise, we would be also only working with the numbers from the business case, which are kind of only prediction what is the benefit. So validation is there.
Okay, thank you. We don't have any questions now, so I would like to encourage our audience to ask. Okay, so here's another one. How accurate the BC in general?
Yeah, I've seen a number of BCs, and not only in this engagement, but also I was preparing the BCs in my career for different projects. Yes, as long as you use the number values, this is much better than just use the statement, right? So the statement business cases, when we have a kind of value statements only, not numerical, we have this business cases are also valid, because certain projects may not have a numbers, may have just a statement, may have just a statement, but in most cases there will be some numeric values. And it could be either this workload, or it could be time, or it could be the money. So first of all, if you use the numbers, is much more accurate than just general statement. Second part is, yes, the numeric values can be from really wishes to really something which is solidly calculated, and then there's a great assumptions. I think the quality of the numbers not only depends on how well it proved at the end, the numbers after project delivery, and there's a validation from controlling, but how well it is prepared, how well documented it is, what are the assumptions taken. I think this is the source of quality. Even if the results at the end are not exactly how it was expected after the projects, I think it should be really valued, and it should be awarded this approach when business case is very well prepared on the top line with a lot of assumptions, a lot of good model of calculating this. That's the value. How good they are different. There are sometimes projects which are kind of completely out of the value which was predicted, and sometimes they are good. So, but I think the really quality lies with the preparing business case and documenting all the assumptions behind this. This is the only way to validate. And once you validate it and you kind of have this knowledge how the previous projects work, you can build up for the next projects kind of knowledge and make it as better as it's a process, and it takes time as well, I believe, to kind of excellence, preparing better. If the PMO holds this knowledge of all the business cases, then obviously PMO is a source of the quality which can be brought to the different organizations, how to prepare the best business case on a given point in time, how we can make it. Okay.
Thank you. Until we have another question from the audience, I have a question. So at the end, you mentioned it's good to identify as much KPIs as you can. So I just thought, are there any KPIs which you identified in a project, and after that you use that on other projects? So are there such KPIs which you can use on every project, and before that work you didn't thought about that, but after you used one,
Yeah, I think if I understand correctly your question, I think there is in this case there was a set of standardized KPIs because they were historically reappearing in all the projects, and it was a kind of standardization of this part of the benefits realization, and obviously every project has to kind of crash against them, and every project can have additional ones which are kind of very specific for this project, specific information, and it's also worth to capture, because certain point in time you may decide that this is kind of standard as well. You want to crash every project with this one. But if the projects during delivery see another benefits which was not expressed in a business case, I think there's no reason why not to really monitor this and really enhance the business case with this KPI. I think business case is not written in stone. So if you see additional benefits, yes, let's shout about this. Let's increase this in a business case. Let's change the business case and make it visible, and because that's at the end, this is the success of the projects, and everybody's it counts for the overall organizational success as well. So yeah, whatever can be seen, and even during the project execution can be added. Why not? It should be added, as long as obviously this is also well documented and it enhances the business case. However, during the projects, I've seen couple of examples, not all in this engagement, but in couple of examples when the business case have to be changed because of the bigger cost of the projects. That's what I would assume is more valid situation in the reality, which is obviously is a different direction. But I think business case can be changed along the project if we see new benefits, definitely.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any other questions, but I think if anyone has after this webinar question, just let us know and we will forward it to Marek and he will answer that in writing. So I would like to thank you, Marek. I really enjoyed your case study and presentation. So thank you to with us. Just some technical information for our audience. I had some technical problems with the YouTube live presentation, so we will upload this recording after closing the event. So we will need some time to upload that, but you will reach it on our YouTube channel. We will, yes.
Yes. I wanted to thank you as well, everybody, and for opportunity for this event. And I wanted to thank you all to find the time just to meet and exchange the experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just another information. I will send you the video claim codes as I promised. So thank you, Marek, again, and thank you everyone to joining us. And I hope you enjoyed your meal, if it's a lunch and learn. So have a good afternoon and a successful day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Goodbye.